Have you ever noticed that high-yielding wheat varieties tend to have lower grain protein? While this is not desirable for hard red spring varieties destined for the human consumption market, it is desirable for grains destined for alcohol production, like ethanol wheat or malt barley. Less protein means more starch to turn into alcohol. Some of the new malt varieties are much higher yielding than the old standby AC Metcalfe. This made us wonder if high-yielding varieties of malt barley had lower grain protein than AC Metcalfe, and if so, would the most economic rate of nitrogen be higher for these varieties? To test this hypothesis, a proposal was put forth by Mitch Japp and Shannon Chand to the Ministry's Strategic Field Plan. The proposal successfully received funding for 4 agrogram locations. Those sites include Yorkton, Prince Albert, Melfort, and Swift Current. Now here's Mike to take us through the trial results.
Thanks, Heather. Here is the yield data averaged over all locations. The yield scale starts at 50 bushels per acre and ends at 100 bushels per acre. The soil plus fertilizer rate of nitrogen starts at an average background level of 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre and is then increased with added nitrogen all the way to 240 pounds per acre. The blue line represents the yield response of AC Metcalfe to added nitrogen. AAC Synergy, as represented by the orange line, is the highest yielding variety, and CDC Bow is in between Synergy and Metcalfe. The relative standing of the varieties in this figure are in keeping with the yield results from regional variety trials. Switching now to the protein data, we can see grain protein response of Metcalfe in blue to added nitrogen is much greater than the higher yielding varieties Synergy in orange and Bow in gray. For the sake of simplicity, let's just compare Metcalfe and Synergy. If we consider 12.5% grain protein to be the maximum level acceptable for malt, then Metcalfe reaches this level at 115 pounds per acre of soil plus fertilizer nitrogen. In contrast, the grain protein for Synergy does not reach 12.5% protein until 150 pounds per acre of soil plus fertilizer N. Remember, the background level of soil N is 40 pounds per acre, so application rates of fertilizer above 75 pounds of nitrogen per acre would result in rejection for Metcalfe for malt, whereas a fertilizer application would need to be above 110 pounds per acre of nitrogen before Synergy would be rejected on the basis of excessive protein. If we go back to the yield responses, we can see Synergy is 7 bushels per acre higher yielding than Metcalfe at 115 pounds per acre of soil plus fertilizer N. So assuming the price per bushel received for both varieties is the same, Synergy is going to be the most economical variety. But if you recall, we can push the yield of Synergy more with rates of soil plus fertilizer N up to 150 pounds per acre before the 12.5% protein limit is exceeded. At this nitrogen rate, the yield of Metcalfe has been increased almost another 6 bushels per acre. But we've also spent more money on nitrogen. So how does this all work out economically? Let's assume the producer will receive $5.20 per bushel for both varieties and the cost of nitrogen is 50 cents a pound. At 115 pounds per acre of soil plus fertilizer nitrogen, Metcalfe is at 12.5% grain protein, but Synergy is only at 12.1% protein. Applying the same rate of nitrogen to both varieties will result in 72.1 bushels per acre of Metcalfe and 79.6 bushels per acre of Synergy. When we compare the gross returns minus the cost of nitrogen, which is the same for both varieties in this scenario, we find Synergy has generated $39 per acre more than Metcalfe. But we can still push the yield of Synergy further with higher rates of nitrogen before we hit the 12.5% protein limit, and this might increase returns even further. So in this scenario, increasing the rate to 150 pounds per acre of soil plus fertilizer nitrogen for Synergy increases yield another 6 bushels per acre. but has also increased the cost of nitrogen from $37.5 to $55 per acre. However, gross returns minus the cost of nitrogen has still increased for Synergy. Synergy is now generating $52 per acre more income than Metcalfe, which is $13 per acre more than when they were fertilized the same. So based on the results from this study, the most economic rate of soil plus fertilizer nitrogen is 115 pounds per acre for Metcalfe and 150 pounds per acre for Synergy. At these rates, both varieties produce grain at 12.5% protein.
So am I going to suggest to farmers that they apply another 35 pounds of nitrogen per acre to Synergy over Metcalfe based on the results of this study? I don't think so. That sounds a bit risky. However, the results of this trial were intriguing and do warrant further investigation. Fortunately, we have received funding to continue this project for another 2 years.